Well, it's that time of year again. The event that happens every 5 years. Howard Stern's contract is up for renewal, and already one piece of news media had to say to the world that Howard is through. And guess who it is, folks? The U.S. Sun. That's right, the U.S. Sun, which, by the way, is owned by Rupert Murdoch, also known as the guy who owns Fox Fake News Channel, the guy who also owns the New York Post, or as my good friend Lucifer has always called it, the New York Compost, because of the fact that for years and years they were saying that Howard Stern, it's like if Howard Stern was like down like a tenth of a point in the ratings, they would put in their papers in 100-point print, Stern down. Oh, he's over. Oh, Howard is through. Nobody listens to Howard anymore. He's a has-been. You know, ratings fluctuate all the time. And just because a radio show has, a bad book doesn't mean the next book's going to be a lot, going to be key. Yeah, it's a down, if a show is in a downward spiral, then it's one thing. But if it's just one lousy book, well, there you go. So anyway, so now the Sun is claiming that Howard wanted $100 million for a new contract, but SiriusXM has already said, nope, no can do, you're done. We're going to get rid of your show. So the story kind of goes a little something like this. It is true, Howard's, SiriusXM subscribers are, they are leaving a little bit here and a little bit there. And I think part of it is also the fact that a lot of Sirius subscribers only listen to Sirius due to the Sirius or XM due to the fact that they buy a new car and Sirius is part of the package. And it's like the last several cars that I purchased, came with a SiriusXM package. And of course, when that happens, I of course get the app, and it allows me to listen to Howard, listen to all these channels that I enjoy listening to. Of course, I like Octane way better than GRD here in town, and of course all the different types of channels that they have to listen to. Great variety, great selection in terms of music. Now, the story with Howard, though, is that number one, he's only on 3 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, usually. But he is off the air this summer. Now, the story was that on Wednesday, Howard made a surprise announcement on his, get this, he was actually on, he actually took some time off his vacation, and they announced it was a big announcement, but it had nothing to do with Howard. It was the fact that Metallica was launching a brand new channel on Sirius, Channel 42. It'll be launched later on this month. It's actually replacing that channel that was once programmed by Drake. Of course, Drake is having some major career problems right now due to the allegations of him sexually assaulting young girls, and of course the Kendrick Lamar spat also, and the fact that Kendrick won all these Grammys were not like us. Anyway, so here's what I'm thinking. First of all, today I was on Facebook, and Doc Ivan, who is he's the guy that Stern fans know is the guy who does these photoshopped images of Stern, and the guy is hilarious at what he does. He's like a political cartoonist, but he uses photoshopping. He's been doing this since probably the 90s. So anyway, Doc Ivan wrote basically what I was the same thing I was thinking, that the only person who's going to make any type of sense whatsoever in all this is going to be Howard himself. Hear it straight from him. If he is so basically put, the story with Howard is that, like I said, yes, his numbers on SiriusXM are going down. Now, one article I did read claimed that Howard once upon a time had 20 million listeners. Now it's down to 125,000, which I cried bullshit on. Do you know Howard's numbers by any chance? I know. Howard is not, Howard basically left traditional media many years ago. I mean, he used to have a TV show on cable TV, the E! Show, which had monster ratings, despite the fact that, there was a lot of censorship on that show, lots of beautiful naked women who were blurred out, but then, he moved his show over to pay-per-view, and many of the episodes that got blurred out were now unedited, which including one episode where he's shaving a woman's pubic region. I got to see some of that years ago, and I'm like, damn, that is so cool watching it. And then, but of course, he had the Private Parts movie, but that was 28 years ago, and that was his last wife, Allison. And it's just that I understand. Howard is SiriusXM is the only place for Howard these days. And, he doesn't have a TV show anymore. He doesn't have, his last book, Howard Stern Comes Again, was kind of a bust. I hate to say it, but it was true, because it was two or three fresh pages of Howard saying that he had a mass removed from him, and it was precancerous, and then it said that, then it was like 300 some odd pages of transcripts. And they were also saying that this was also a political move, which I kind of have to agree with. So if Howard does leave SiriusXM, because here's the tragic truth about SiriusXM. SiriusXM mostly gives to the Republicans. According to Goods Unite Us, which is this awesome website that tells people where money goes to in terms of politics, about 78% of Sirius's political dollars don't go to Democrats. It goes to the Republicans. And I can tell you the big reason why. It's because of one man, John Malone. Ever hear of John Malone? I'll bet most of you have not. So let me tell you who John Malone is. John Malone is 84 years old. He is worth $10 billion. He was the former head of a company called Telecommunications Incorporated, TCI. It was an old cable company that was bought out many years ago. So John is a major Trump supporter, although he's also supported libertarian candidates. He is a conservative Christian, and he has made threats against MTV in the past. Back in the 80s, he told MTV, you put any bands on there that are thrash metal, junkie people, I will personally take MTV off my cable boxes. And one band that he made a threat against was Guns N' Roses. There were rumors that Guns N' Roses had drug issues, and, you know, of course, what happened was the guy who signed the band to the label, Tom Zutaut, I think that's his name. He was the guy who signed the band. A&R guy, saw them play in a club in Los Angeles back in '86, I think. Signed the band to Geffen, recorded Appetite for Destruction. Appetite for Destruction was a bomb when it was first released because MTV wouldn't play their videos. A couple of videos were made. Of course, one was for Welcome to the Jungle. The other was Sweet Child of Mine. So this is what happened. 7 months after Appetite for Destruction was released, Zutaut was told at a meeting by the president of Geffen that they're going to withdraw their support. They're done. The album bombed. They're going to take a write-off on it. So this is what happened. Tom went upstairs to David Geffen's office. That's right. He went to David Geffen's office. He was not supposed to. Now, they... And so this is what happened. He went upstairs to David Geffen's office, and he wasn't supposed to be up there. It was appointment only. And I guess people were actually fired for just coming into David Geffen's office and telling him, hey, blah, 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 blah. Tom actually went up to his office. I guess he was in the middle of a meeting or something, or in the phone call. He said, you people have done nothing for Appetite for Destruction. The album should have been a smash hit by now. MTV's not playing the videos. Radio stations aren't playing the music. What the fuck is wrong with you people? And then finally, as a last-ditch effort, David agreed to call MTV after he was done doing what he was doing. Tom went back to his office. He knew he was going to get fired. He didn't care. He wanted Guns N' Roses to be the next breakthrough artist. And guess what happened? Somebody did come. I guess it was his Geffen's secretary. She went to Tom and said, MTV will play Sweet Child of Mine, Welcome to the Jungle, at 4 a.m. in the morning on Sunday morning. Tom was pissed. All that hard work for nothing. But then, Sunday afternoon, Tom, I guess, had a bender or something. He woke up at 3:30 in the afternoon. And he had a bunch of messages on his machine. First message said, Tom, MTV has put Welcome to the Jungle in full rotation. And the reason why is because when the video aired at 4 o'clock in the morning, or 1 a.m. East Coast, people were coming home from the bar. They turned on their MTV. They were playing this song. And so many people called MTV at once that it actually caught the switchboard on fire. Too many people were calling at once, and they said, let's go, yep, we're going to have to put the video on high rotation. Now, and of course, the rest of the story was that Appetite for Destruction would end up selling 30 million copies. And of course, Guns N' Roses had several number one hits. Sweet Child of Mine, Patience, both went to number one. They, that's what this Zutaut guy tried doing. That's what he did. He signed Guns N' Roses and made them a household name. And not only that, there was nothing John Malone can do, because the people spoke out. They wanted Guns N' Roses. And, that's what happens when you're a billionaire. like him. You like to tell people that, oh, nobody likes this, but people will listen to this. It's like people saying, it's like back in the 60s, people saying rock and roll is dead. Let's listen to Lawrence Welk. Yeah, and I know what they mean. Of course, Lawrence Welk actually had a #1 hit on the pop charts back in 1960, Calcutta. And, but anyway, here's another thing that John Malone did that was very disgusting. So, he helped to make Pat Robertson very wealthy. So, this is what happened. John Malone, so what happened was Pat Robertson had this cable network called CBN. The CBN Family Channel, as it was called. And CBN, which is Christian Broadcasting Network, they were on... so the story with CBN was that it was originally a nonprofit network and part of CBN, Pat Robertson's nonprofit group. Back in the late 80s, a lot of these Christian networks were shutting down because of scandal after scandal. The Bakers, of course, and PTL. You had Jimmy Swaggart. There was, of course, the savings and loan scandal. And the guy who was a big part of it, Charles Keating, he financed a lot of anti-porn movies in the 60s. I mean, it just went on and on. It was like Christianity wasn't cool anymore. And because the fix, everyone knew that the fix was in. So what happened was, Pat Robertson decided that he wanted to turn CBN into, I guess he wanted to be part religious crap, like the 700 Club, his show. And then, old TV shows and game shows. So this is what he did. So this is what happened. He decided to create a company called International Family Entertainment. And he wanted the CBN channel, they shortened the name to simply the Family Channel. And the Family Channel would be one of his properties. So this is what happened. I guess there was a lot of tax situations turning a non-profit entity into a for-profit entity. And there would be a lot of money and a lot of this, a lot of that. So this is what Pat Robertson did. He called on John Malone, head of TCI, to come on in and be the middleman. Pat would sell the Family Channel to him for like $1, and then he would sell the Family Channel to International Family Entertainment, Pat's for-profit company, for that same $1. So that's how it worked. And of course, Pat Robertson also owned the Ice Capades. I guess they were having major financial problems, so he decided to sell that, buy that. I guess Peggy Fleming owned it. She was a legendary skater back in the day. And then he also bought the Mary Tyler Moore Show. That's right. He once owned MTM Productions. Little kitty cat, you remember that? The cat, I thought that was actually Mary Tyler Moore's cat. It wasn't. It was actually a staffer at MTM Productions. The cat's name was Mimsy, and get this, Mimsy lived to be 20 years old. So what happened was, MTM was originally owned by Mary Tyler Moore and her husband, Grant Tinker, who was a TV executive. The two divorced. And I guess what happened was, as part of the divorce, they had to sell the company. And they ended up selling it to a British firm called TVS, which was actually a television station in England. However, they lost their license to broadcast, and TVS, I guess, had to sell everything they owned, including MTM. So, guess who ended up buying Mary Tyler Moore Productions? Pat Robertson, International Family Entertainment. That's right, at one point, that's right, in the 1990s, the Mary Tyler Moore Show, Rhoda, Phyllis, the Bob Newhart Show, and WKRP in Cincinnati and other shows were now under the ownership of Pat Robertson's International Family Entertainment. And allegedly, Mary Tyler Moore herself was pissed that a religious zealot like him owned the company. And to make matters worse, Pat Robertson also so through MTM, Pat Robertson produced a show. MTM produced this show from South America called Xuxa, Xuxa. Remember her? She was a big children's entertainer back in Brazil, I believe. And then what happened was she wanted to bring her show to America. MTM picked it up, and Pat Robertson was quick to tell her, "You gotta clean. You gotta clean it up a little bit. Oh, you gotta clean it up a little bit, 'cause what you're doing is not Christian. You understand? And Mary Tyler Moore, I don't give a fuck who she worships. Okay, 'cause that company's mine now. I've seen what you do in Brazil, Xuxa. You dress like a whore. You sing these sexy songs that make Jesus cry. So what I want you to do is to clean it up." And partially because of Pat Robertson, she bombed here. She didn't have it's like she wanted to have a show that kids would enjoy, and so would their parents. And because of the bullshit that Pat Robertson did, there you go. Now the good news, because I live here in Grand Rapids, guess what else TCI did? In the late 1990s, they dumped MTV and Comedy Central from their lineups. And allegedly, it was because the local head of TCI Cable was a Jesus freak and didn't. I'm protecting our children from this filth. And I'm like, okay, if my cable company dropped MTV or dropped a channel that I loved because of their beliefs, I'd be dropping them. And I guess a lot of people dropped TCI. But anyway, the story is that TCI went out of business. I think Comcast. A lot of mergers and acquisitions over the years. I guess one of the buyers was Time Warner, and and it's like because Time Warner owns what's left of TCI, Malone is on the board of directors. So, of course, it's now Warner Brothers Discovery, and of course, it's been announced that Warner Brothers Discovery is going to break up into two different companies. I guess Discovery is going to take over the cable operations, and Warner Brothers is still going to do movies and TV shows, etc., etc. Whatever. It wouldn't shock me if John Malone is a big reason why Cinemax stopped showing those skin flicks. Remember when Cinemax used to show skin flicks at midnight? I mean, they were not full-blown, full-bore sex scenes, mind you. Some were. They were just cut-down versions of actual porno movies. But, I mean, some of the movies did have full nudity, but of course, obviously, they couldn't show penetration or sucking or licking or any of that good stuff. And what's even more embarrassing is the fact that once upon a time, HBO used to have, shows like Real Sex, and shows like that haven't been on the air anymore. Haven't been on the air in years. It's like HBO is basically trying to tell the world that sex shouldn't be normalized. And it's like the only place on earth that should be sex friendly is the internet. But anyway, but here's the thing. Both HBO and Cinemax, since they stopped showing all these, skin flicks, their ratings are down like 38%. And I'm like, no shit. Not only that, I have heard that a lot of these pay channels are going out of business because who watch it? Who buys? Well, I understand HBO. I guess a lot of people still watch HBO, but I think a lot of it is also streaming as well. But anyway, but a lot of the situation falls on the fact that, this guy, not only does he own Sirius, is a part owner of SiriusXM, not only is he a part of the Warner Brothers Discovery Board, he is also the owner of F1 Racing. And of course, there was a recent F1 movie that was out that was a huge hit at the box office. And and he's also a part owner of Live Nation Entertainment, which owns Ticketmaster. So if you are paying a lot of money on tickets to your favorite rock concerts, well, you have John Malone to thank. So, and I believe he is also an owner of DirecTV. I could be right, could be wrong. The company he owns is called Liberty Media. By the way, he's also known for selling companies too. He used to own the Atlanta Braves. Yeah, he actually spun it off, and believe it or not, the Braves are now a publicly traded team. Yeah, they're like the only publicly traded team in all of sports, as far as I know. I guess the MLB said, "Cool, we're good with that." But another thing you got to think about too is, Liberty Media also owned, believe it or not, they used to own the CBS affiliate in Marquette, which was WJMN Channel 3, which repeated WFRV Channel 5. Of course, they were also CBS. And, of course, Channel 3 is now no longer with CBS. I believe they're actually with ABC now. Yeah, there was a big whoop-de-doo up in the Western UP not too long ago. And I believe they're actually owned by a company called Morgan Murphy. Yeah. So here's the rest of this. Sorry, fire truck. Oh, fire truck. Wonder if there was an accident somewhere. But anyway. So, but then again, you also have people who say, well, Howard is, even Donald Trump has said that the reason why nobody listens to Howard anymore is because, he's a huge fan of Hillary. Yeah, he's had Hillary on the show. And he supported her in 2016. And Howard it's true, he has gotten more and more to the left. Howard used to be kind of both ways. But now, the right has become outlandishly conservative and anti-freedom of speech. Donald Trump, marched with this, the American Family Association and all these other groups that, all tried to get him off terrestrial radio and succeeded, obviously. So it's like, why should Howard stand up for that? The reason why is because both Trump and the American Family Association and these other groups, they're trying to not only eliminate the First Amendment, but also turn America into a Christian nationalist nation. And they basically want to tell you that instead of reading the Constitution, you should read the Bible, and all the rules in the Bible, basically state that God hates this and God hates that. You see, folks, but the reason why so many people are mad at Howard is not because of that. It's because, he doesn't have strippers on the show anymore. He got rid of, he doesn't have porn stars. He's banned several guests who were really popular. And it's like sometimes he does a lot of interviews with all these pop stars and actors and whatnot that I have nothing to do with or care about. Especially Adam Levine from Maroon 5. I fucking hate Maroon 5. It's like, folks, I don't pee sitting down. And because of that, I don't listen to Maroon 5. You understand? But, well, they're pals. And Howard thinks that Adam is a brilliant singer. Oh, he did a good version of Purple Rain. But the point is, look at what he did to Artie Lang. I mean, yes, Artie was a fuck up. He had a severe drug problem. And Howard fired him when he tried to commit suicide. Instead of addressing the issue, he just buried him under the rug. And not only that, some people are kind of miffed about the fact that, it's no longer Gary the Retard or Winnie the Retard. It's Gary the Conqueror and Winnie the Slow Adult. And I know that he's done a lot of editing of old comedy bits and, he's banned some comedy bits and so on and so on. And some people are even angry at the fact that Howard doesn't even come out of his house hardly at all. He does. It's like last year he did some, not too long ago, he did a fan appreciation day where a lot of his big fans all visited the studio, but he wasn't in there. He was at his house. And it's like Howard doesn't go out in public hardly at all anymore. And of course he blames everything on COVID. I don't blame him on that one. Howard is a hardcore germaphobe, and of course things are going to get only worse with RFK in there. But the point is, I think that there's going to be a variety of reasons why Howard will want to leave. And if Howard wants to leave, we should not allow Fox News or Rupert Murdoch's media empire to tell us. The truth is, one person and one person only should tell us what his plans are, and that's Howard. Let Howard explain everything. Rupert Murdoch, look folks, Rupert Murdoch had to pay the voting booth, the voting machine people. Remember what happened? $787 million. Then they almost lost more money because they admitted fault. Honestly, I hope that if Howard does leave SiriusXM, if Howard does indeed leave SiriusXM, he'll still be out there. Maybe he can do an interview show like David Letterman does for Netflix. My first guest needs no introduction. Maybe he can do, of course, Doc Ivan said that, hey, it happened to Barbara Walters. She used to be a full-board newswoman, and then she started doing interview shows. And, at least try to keep relevant. I mean, seriously, folks, I hope that Howard doesn't turn into like Johnny Carson. Look at what happened to him. Johnny Carson, not horribly long after he stopped hosting the Tonight Show, he became pretty much a recluse. And, he decided that his better days were behind him. The point is, I hope that the decision that Howard makes will be the right one. And, let's remember, folks, this is only August. Okay? His contract expires in 4 months. I hope what will happen will be the best decision. Not just for himself, but for the fans too. And, I know he's 71. And I know there's a lot of folks who worked in radio until they died. Paul Harvey was like 90-something years old when he died. And there were other, in my hometown of Traverse City, there was a guy who worked his entire life at WTCM, Merlin Dumbro. He was a beloved figure on that station. And the only reason why he left the airwaves was because he was diagnosed with cancer. He kept his fight secret. But he wanted to tour the country, wanted to go around in his RV and, give America one last look before he kicked the bucket. And that's what he did. And it's other people. People loved being on radio. They loved to talk. They loved to tell their opinions. But Howard, like I said, let's remember, his dad made it to 99. His mother's still alive. She's 97, 98 years old? But the point is, once again, with peace and love, let Howard make the final decision. Rupert Murdoch can go eat shit for all I care. His media empire sucks. I hate the fact that my father watches Fox News all the time and he thinks that Trump is doing a great job. And look at what happened. They're hardly talking about, the truth. They're not talking about, the Epstein bullshit that's going on. They'd rather talk about Sydney Sweeney and her genes. Fuck Sydney Sweeney. Fuck her and the fact that she's a fucking Republican, and fuck her for the fact that, she would only show her bush to deserving people. Fuck her. Vey. Yes, Howard would say. Okay. It's getting hot in my car. I gotta get going. I hope you have a good day, everyone. Good day and good luck. I'll talk to you later.